Thank you for being here. I think they would love to hear perspective from you guys. The thing is that the best person, when you're walking through a minefield, the best person to follow is somebody who's walked just before you through it, and follow that person. Am I making sense? Because then you know where they stepped and where they didn't step. Or somebody who successfully walked through that minefield, right? So we have people here who have done that, and so we'd love to hear from you. So Neil, here's the question. Can you think about some peer pressure experiences you've faced? And tell us how you dealt with it, but particularly maybe one particular peer pressure situation, and how do you dealt with it? Introduce yourself before you start talking.
Hello, so my name is Neil. I am a student at NJIT, and for that question, one of the times that I had in peer pressure was, during school was, especially during my campus times was to, go take a risk while you're on school. So especially when I was in DC, I decided to, take a chance to, become a president of the NCC club. But even if I didn't get it, to, get a chance to, give a conference, give a speech in front of a crowd like we're doing right now. So you don't get the role, you build that confidence, and, even if it sounds like a negative cognitive thing, it's also positive peer pressure when you help you build your confidence up that higher notch. That's on my eyes.
That's great. Yeah. So I think it's important to mention that peer pressure can be from a positive and a negative aspect too. And it goes back to, we talk about having that right tribe. If you're part of a right group, then pressure from the right group can be positive, right? Because they will push you to be better. Okay. So thank you, Neil. So Tyler, we're going to give you the next question. The next question is, what are your thoughts on social media and peer pressure, and do the costs outweigh the benefits of using social media?
So first of all, my name is Tyler Brown. I'm a double year student at Rutgers University, very old. And I have a lot of opinions about social media because I personally own absolutely zero social media. I do not use social media. I do not indulge in social media in any form or in any way. And the main reason why is because I am one of the proponents that the costs eventually will outweigh the benefits, despite the fact that the benefits are very, very strong. Because at the end of the day, we had a conversation with the chief of police who came in, the chief of police of West Whistler, who came in here, and one of the things that he said to me that was very poignant is the most dangerous weapon is also the greatest tool in our household, and he pulled out his phone. Because at the end of the day, that is very, very true, that a phone is an amazing tool that allows us to connect with people not only across the country, but across the globe. It allows us to stay in touch with reality, with news, with just about anything that we can find on the internet. At the end of the day, that information is really going to help us. However, on the other side of it, this reliance on social media and this reliance on the opinions of other people, the reliance of other people's opinions who may not necessarily have weight are given weight because of social media, to the point where you have a lot of kids nowadays who are going to respect the opinion of, whoever the top influencer is, whoever the most popular person is, whoever the most, popular movie star is, over their own parents, because these are the role models that they use in order to get their opinions, because the opinions aren't going to come from those sources, not tomorrow, unfortunately. So it's a complicated thing with me and my family, because a lot of my family also go use social media. I do have a couple of people who do, and whenever I see them scrolling through or making a TikTok, my first response is like, oh yeah, you're doing well, I would do, the rest of you use. Jesus, please no. But I'm not going to say that social media is completely a bad thing. Social media in and of itself, when used correctly, is extremely important on keeping us all connected, no matter what the distance is between us. The problem is when we start using social media as an excuse, as a replacement for, like, as you so eloquently put, when the health and the internet is constantly being improved, we are going down while AI is going up, because that is the future. We're moving backwards. And I think social media is one of the biggest proponents of that. When used correctly, it can be a good thing. But like many things in life, it's sometimes not. That's why I do think that the cost outweighs the benefits, especially nowadays. Social media becomes a replacement, not a tool. And I think that's very, we actually absolutely should be moving away from using it as a replacement, because you can't replace people.
Absolutely, well put. And I would say, I mean, you make a couple of good points, and so we have to be careful how we engage with it so that we don't go down that hole now. But that, probably be mentorship in a way that we leverage social media to grow us, not lessen us as a group. So, great points. So, the next question I have is for Daksha, okay? And so Daksha, here's the question. So we've discussed that peer pressure is not always negative and can sometimes be positive. Is this something you've experienced? If so, what was your positive peer pressure experience? I know it's kind of be touched upon a little bit, but maybe from your lens, introduce yourself.
Okay, now. Hi everyone, my name is Daksha. I am the director of UC Global Youth, and I'm currently both Rutgers University pursuing a triple major at the moment. But in terms of this issue, I have personally experienced positive depression multiple times, not just in college, but throughout schooling as well. One of the biggest things was it has to do with academics, I think. So I am surrounded by a lot of people that also love to study. So for example, my best friend Dia, she's pre-med. So we both study a lot, and so we kind of positively influence each other to study rather than we go out and do other stuff that we shouldn't do. And another thing that I also think has positively influenced me was the introduction of clubs into my life. So at first, I would just kind of stay home, study. That's all I would do. I focused purely on academics. But when I got to college, I got peer pressured in a way, positively, to join Bias Society, for example. And now I'm a programming chipper. So not only is that just good for my resume, I feel like I've met so many amazing people throughout that club. And it's just a really good experience to have, to be with all these other people that might not necessarily agree with me. It's just a very good experience overall, but yeah.
It's good to hear that. It's good to hear that. And the adjunct to that is that we want to create that positive peer group first so that the peer pressure can be in a positive sense, right? And so thank you for sharing. So Dia, looking forward to hearing from you. You think peer pressure would support a positive community? Another segue to what you just mentioned. And how can we use peer pressure in a strategic way to better ourselves?
Hello everyone, my name is Dia. I'm representing Bay Area University Study Sociology. I think when we talk about peer pressure, we have to recognize that we're talking about a very specific type of this overall phenomena that people around us interact with how we behave. And that's something out of my experience that is critical to society. For example, you're walking across the street, right? You come up across the crosswalk. There's no cars going, so you technically could cross. That's not your sign to do so yet. Then suddenly you see the person next to you just starts to cross. How many of you guys could predict that situation? Well, if they're crossing, I'll cross too, right? Or you're like, yeah, see, it's a very common thing. And in that scenario, the person kind of persuaded you, you don't even know them. They could be a stranger, they could be a completely different age. So now think about environments in classrooms or schools. where everyone is of the same age. You kind of know them a little bit more to some extent. Of course, those interactions, the way people behave around you is going to affect everything. So I would actually argue that peer pressure is a very critical part of building communities in any case, because it dictates what people act. So when you consider that, the question turns into, how do we guarantee that this peer pressure is positive? And in a way that is kind of a harder question to answer. It's very hard to tell kids what to do, especially like school settings. But if we want to ensure that the peer pressure is positive, what we need to do is make sure that people have the skills to identify between negative and positive peer pressure. And for that, I think, as you would also mention in your speech, Dr. Mistry, being aware, conscious of your actions plays such a big part. Being able to see what people around you are doing, but more so understanding like the consequences of those actions. How will that benefit you? How will it benefit others? And once you can kind of make those distinctions, individuals themselves will be like, well, I think what that person's doing is actually really good, and engage in that behavior. And we'll start to see stronger, healthier communities form.
You know, part of that is also, as you said, the awareness, but also part of it is that do those people share your values, right? Because then when your values are aligned with those people, then they're going to be a source of growth for you, you know, and then you can really follow. Thank you for sharing. Okay, we're going to go a little bit out of sequence to have Jay speak. Okay, so Jay, the question for you is, we're going to talk a bit about relationships and whatnot, okay? But this will be here from everybody, okay? We talk about peer pressure, positive, negative. We talk about also that comes into place that how we relate to people, relationships. How do you see that, you know, from your perspective as positive, negative relationships and how they will open or not?
Yeah, it's a great question. Hi everyone, I'm Jay Wagenker. I call myself the elder youth, but I think if I hear one more 6'7" meme, I think I might just feel geriatric at this point. But I'm 27 years old. I'm a director of a solar company here in New Jersey. In a past life, I was an advisor at the White House of President Joe Biden, so I've worked in politics, the private sector, graduated from Penn about 5 years ago. And so I've built a lot of relationships across the political spectrum, across the nonprofit, the corporate sphere. And you'll think about this advice about relationships, not just in your professional life, but in your personal life, in your romantic life. Parents, cover your ears. No, I'm just kidding. And so what I think about a lot when I evaluate whether a relationship is healthy or unhealthy is really just the core gut feeling of how you feel right after the interaction with that person. Do they make you feel uplifted after? Do they put you down after? When you share the news with them, are they happy for you? Especially if they might not be happy themselves, do they make space to make you feel celebrated, make you feel empowered? And often when I think about that, I say, okay, that's the first thing I think about when I interact with someone. What are some better ways to actually evaluate that gut feeling? You know, a lot of adults will tell you, go with your gut, go with your gut. And just figuring out what my gut is, what does that actually mean? A framework I like to think a lot about is the 5 love languages. And it's not super scientific. It was created by a Southern pastor, but it's really good advice. And the 5 categories, I always forget all of them, but they're quality time, right? How much time you're spending with that person. Words of affirmation, telling them, I appreciate you, I'm here for you, I'm so proud of you. Part about physical touch, giving them a hug, being there for them. And to talk about acts of service as well, right? Which is are you going to go do the dishes for them without them asking, you go and get the flowers. And the last one is gifts, actually just, giving them an item and it might be really meaningful to them. But when I think about professional, platonic, romantic relationships, what's so important is how are they expressing those love languages to you and how do they inspire you to express those languages with them? And some relationships you may feel like I'm not really getting a lot of words of affirmation. I'm not really feeling a lot of quality time. I walk away and maybe the only reason
I spend time with this person just because they're my classmate and they're around. I don't feel great when I'm with them. Other friends would feel, wow, every time we're having a bad day and I go and talk to them, I walk away with such a cool tidbit of advice, or I get to just vent about this with them and I feel so much better. That's that quality time. And so I would just challenge all of you to really evaluate your relationships and how much they add value to your life and how much you can add value to them through those kinds of frameworks.
Awesome. Thank you. So segue from relationships to, if a related topic is environment. And Tyler, this question's for you. How do you think your environment has nurtured your resilience and well-being?
My environment is what I became, first of all, because I wouldn't be where I am today, or even remote who I am today, without my environment. Because for me, like, environment really starts with me and your family. I always grew up in a very, education-minded household. My mom always wanted me to be the perfect golden child. Always went to school, focused on education and nothing but education, because my older brother ended up being a ladies' man, so she wanted me to be the opposite. That was the sort of environment I grew up with. But also, growing up with physical disabilities, I wasn't able to get out of the house that much. I was, born with severe hospital so unable to drive, unable to walk for long distances. So a lot of my environment was centered around my family, because those are the people I spent the most time. I wasn't given the ability to go out with friends that often, to go to parties, or go out, just drive around to it. I was always the one to be driven. So having that support system was definitely very important to me, and I think it's important to everybody to have that support system. You need to be able to feel like you can lean back on somebody. Whether it's one person, whether it's a best friend, whether it's a family member, whether it's a significant other, you have to have that net underneath to catch you, because at the end of the day, you're going to fall in your life. And if you don't have that net, you're going to hit the ground hard. And that, my family was always that support system for me. Whether it was, there could be something as simple as, bias, becoming a double major in, psychology, criminal justice minor, and critical intelligence studies. The reason why is because I was pushed to do the double major. And it was something as simple as, I asked my mom, it's like, is doing a double major really a good idea? Maybe I'm putting too much on myself. She looked me down in the eyes and said, well, I did great. So I ended up being a double major. It's little pushes like that remind me that, like, my parents and my support system, my environment, they support what I'm doing. But also, not even just that, but also getting to know environments outside of the norm, outside of the usual, which is why I remember many years ago when I was like 12, 13, 14, when I went to the Philippines. And that was one of the most life-changing times of my life, getting to experience an environment that will nurture me in a way that, an environment like on the West and in America, as much as I love this country, it could never do. And the main thing the main story I always tell people is when I went on a missions trip in the Philippines to get this family SRG, the program that we were involved in at the time, that helps, the youth that are very, they don't have the money to really support themselves. And I remember specifically when I was there, back before I truly realized why. After we entered the house, the mother started crying. And I never understood why. And, I was 12 years old at the time. I was like, I just walk into your house and you're suddenly shedding tears. Like, I don't get it. I'm hot. So and then it took my mom to explain to me after why she was crying. And it was one of the most important moments for me, getting that point. She was embarrassed to have Americans in her house, because she couldn't provide for us what we can provide for ourselves of the order. And I never forgot, because that was when I realized I need to be able to produce an environment for other people who do not have these advantages, which is why I became an activity and research coordinator for this very event, because I want to give people the blessings that I thankfully was given I was given the blessing of having a good diet. I was given the blessing of being in a safe community. I was given the blessing of having a really good environment for people who would give me that next funk, but not everybody has that. And that's why that environment really allowed me to support myself and have the support for myself so that I could give that support to other people, which is why my environment is what ended up being here, talking to you all about why How Do You Brave Bio was so important.
Wonderful. I think environment is so important. I relate to traveling at different parts of the world. My dad used to work for United Nations. I tell people I've changed 22 houses in my lifetime, and so some people have few. I had 22, but each time that gave me a new perspective and made me more resilient. So at the time, we're very grateful, but now I look back and like you, take it as a positive experience. So Daksha, can you give me a time where you felt empowered by a friend? How they served as a source of growth for you?
I could literally make so many. My friends are great. But I guess one example is with UCUs, actually. So at first it just started as an idea. It was really hard to put together, and you obviously need a lot of people to get this done because it's a big event, and the participants, there's like a lot of thought that goes into it, and the development of activities. I think a lot of empowerment I received when I brought this idea to my friends. All of them were instantly very, very happy with this idea, and they did not hesitate to help join this initiative, help me out in whatever way I can. And it was really, really nice. I felt very good about what I was doing, and I was like, okay, wait, maybe this can actually work out. And it turned out being so much better than I initially thought it would be. And it's purely because of all these people sitting on the panel and my other colleague here that has helped me. So I think that's the biggest time I could tell you that, and it is relatively recent. But yeah, that's what I think.
Thank you. Wonderful. Neil. So think about you're talking about environment, friends, family. What about in terms of teachers in their school? You think that their teachers could do anything differently to make you more confident or to be more supportive?
For the teachers, I definitely feel that they do so much more, and they don't have power because of their directory. But I feel like if they yourself saying, hey, here's a lecture, and it's PowerPoint, do it on your own, not actually one, actually, make it interaction. Because there's been so many classes where I get just sitting in lectures, just, not even paying attention, I've been just doom scrolling on my opponent's, or even doing my work on my own, and said, oh, the professor said that, don't write that down. Because if it's a lot more engaging, you make classes feel more enjoyable. There's this one class at MCC where Professor gave out hardly homework. It was such an academically engaging class. All of us were having so much fun. We were all actually, talking about, school, about life. And instead of we're going to be in classes, feel like they're just, hey, here's the professor, gives their assignments, go home, see you next week. Make it feel like it's, more of a place of real, not socially safe, but more of engaging, so that way students can feel excited to go to class, because no one wants to wake up at 8 in the morning, come to a class that lasts a good minutes, and then go home and say, all right, I have to just do whatever. I think that if it's more engaging, it will make people feel more happy and actually go to class.
Thank you. So let me move on to the we touched upon relationships today, and you talk about peer pressure, sources where they come from, and whatnot. And even you're kind of studying this field, where your major is and whatnot. And we'd like to hear from your perspective and what you're doing in school about when you feel pressure and have that stress, anxiety from that. Either it's from peer pressure, schoolwork, or everything like that. What have you, any techniques like for their youth here and that can be helpful to deal with that, peer pressure?
Yeah, first things first, Vincent, when it comes to stress or anxiety, you have to realize every thought that comes along with it is often unfounded. Even if the thing that is stressing you or making you anxious is genuine worry, the level of which you're feeling stress and anxiety is an extrapolation. It is like your mind thinking of usually the worst case scenario, just snowballing after and after. And I think subconsciously a lot of people didn't recognize that, or that why else would be a specific term, express or describe these emotions rather than worries. We know it is a very unfounded way of thinking about these things. But it gets very easy to lose sight of that when you keep it in yourself, keep it in your brain. Because they thought that you just have these thoughts in your head, they're just constantly bouncing off every wall in your brain. So I personally find that the most effective way to deal with stress, anxiety, is getting it out. And I think this is different for every person. I know for me personally, the two things which really helps are talk to others, talk with my friend. It's either like be a text message, be like, hey, talk, I'm a little stressed, share what concerns me. And the other thing I find really helpful is actually write about what was stressing me out. I know people make fun or make jokes about keeping a journal or a diary, but it is a really helpful way of getting all their thoughts out there without trying to think too much about it. Just getting it out on the page. And then what I got was I read what I've written, and below was that, well, this actually don't have to be stressed about. This isn't actually a real concern. So being able to create that distance between yourself and your inner self specifically and these thoughts will give you the clarity to kind of pass stress and anxiety.
Great. So as we wrap up here, what I would say is that let me get the mic from Jay's here. So I'm going to have to all think of one sentence, okay? That what is the advice you could give yourself as a early teenager? Not that you guys are close to kind of finishing this journey and entering like this adult world. One advice now in retrospect, that just one advice that if you could go back and talk to yourself, what would you tell yourself? We'll start with Jay.
I would go back and say to my high school self that you are capable of things so much greater than you realize because you haven't met all the people who are going to love and support you yet. You're going to meet so many people throughout your life who are going to lift you up in so many ways. And so your job is to find them and to be that person for other people as well.
Nice.
Boiling it down to one sentence is not easy because there's a lot of stuff I need to tell my when teenage self. But if I had to boil it down to one sentence, I would definitely tell myself, don't let your disadvantages define you. Because that was the one thing I always did when I was younger. I was always, the disabled kid at school, everybody could poke at me, photo, what have you. But I never, back then, it definitely did define me, but now I know that I'm so much more than my disadvantages because of the advantages that I've been given both by myself and mostly by other people, and not to let my disadvantages define me and rather allow my advantages to go out and to help as many people as possible.
Awesome.
I think if I had to tell myself one thing, I would tell myself that there was always a purpose. Because quite frankly, I went through a lot of stuff when I was in high school, middle school, all of that, in terms of like medical issues, bullying, all that stuff. And I didn't know why. It happened to me all at once. But now I feel like those experiences have shaped me for the better, especially today. The reason I'm able to conduct a lot of these events, do a lot of the research that I have, is because I was strengthened by those experiences. So even if it seemed bad at the time, now it actually turned out to be a good thing.
tell my younger self that the only shots you will ever completely miss are the ones you never take. I was a very shy kid. I think if you went back by 10 years and told little Lee that I'd be sitting here talking in front of you guys, she'd be like, no, I'd be in the back. And when you grow up shy, you feel a little bit more introverted sometimes. You miss a lot of opportunities thinking like, it's not a big deal, nothing will happen. But I will say, regardless of any opportunity that comes your way, just a bit, try a bit. Even if you don't get exactly what you thought you'd get from the experience, you'll still get something really valuable. So, yeah.
I think for me in high school, I got as, popping, so I thought I for myself. Just, throw out there as often as you can. You don't worry about what other people think, and if no one likes you, just say, all right, that's fine, or me, Jared.
Thank you. So we wrap up here. I hope you guys enjoyed this panel. You hear from them? I would say, from my perspective, maybe I'm a little bit like that with you guys. Is that it's to have a growth mindset has been critical for me. And I can relate to everything everyone up to said. I've been shy. I've been picked at because I was so skinny. I wouldn't get picked for sports and things like that. I've gone through things like that. So I've been everywhere that all of you said. But what I think, if I could go back to myself, I would say that you can grow out of anything, or you can grow above anything that you want. So whatever you think is your disadvantage right now, actually you can make it an advantage in the future, So I would say have that growth mindset and then just go at it, and we wish you the best with everything you do.
Thank you so much, amazing panelists. I got to learn a lot from every one of you. And that's one thing, as an adult we think we know all, but every day you learn a lot from these youth and our own kids. I learned a lot from my son. I know one time he went to Cabo and he showed me that he did the cliff jumping. And I was like, oh my goodness, that looks great, but I am so scared. How did you do it? And he said, Mom, you cannot live in fear. I said, it's for you, I cannot do it. I said, you can't live in fear. And next day I went and enrolled myself for swimming lessons. So that's how kids can make a difference in your life. So, just take time to listen to them, take time to just understand them, and we all can learn from each other. So it's such an outstanding group, and I got goosebumps listening to all of you. And thank you so much, Dr. Mistry. Your presence was amazing here to moderate this panel. And again, a round of applause.